a script, or not a script, a quote for the day, and I've decided not to go live on Sundays, so I'm going to do a double dip today, as being a Monday, to dive into a couple of James Allen quotes. Sharing the screen here. So, to make a useful and happy life dependent upon health is to put matter before mind. It is to subordinate spirit to body. Oh, I love that. James Allen just nails things. You got to put your spirit first. You got to let the divine nature control the body rather than the other way around. Men of robust minds do not dwell upon their bodily condition if it be in any way disordered. They ignore it. They work on, live on as though it were not. This ignoring of the body is not only keeps the mind sane and strong, but it is the best resource for curing the body. If we cannot have a perfectly sound body, we can have a healthy mind, and a healthy mind is that best route to a sound body. Oh, love it, love it. Hey, as a side note of this, not brother, Saint Francis of Assisi, he makes reference to brother donkey is what he calls it, and he says, and I got this quote from Saint Francis of Assisi, essentially from an author named Eknath Aswarna, who was born and raised in India and went to school in Oxford, and he does excellent merging, if you will, of the Eastern and Western thoughts. And he put together a book on the imitations of Christ, which is the number two book sold in the world next to the Bible. And anyhow, within that book that he put out, he quotes Saint Francis of Assisi, and he says that our bodies ought to be trained like an elite athlete. By controlling it. And he uses the St. Francis reference that Brother Donkey is meant to be fed and taken care of and nourished, but to be ridden, not to ride us. So our bodies are designed to be controlled and handled by our divine spirit and to master rather than tell us what to do, tell our spirits what to do. A sickly mind is more deplorable than a disorderly body, and it leads to sickness of body. The mentally invalid is in a far more pitiable condition than the bodily invalid. There are invalids, every physician knows them, who only need to lift themselves into a strong, unselfish, happy frame of mind to discover that their body is whole and capable. Moral principles are the soundest foundation for health as well as for happiness. I'm reminded from that previous paragraph, I'm reminded of a singer. His name's Offer Blessing. He's a great singer, and he's originally from Africa, and he's blind. And I remember him saying something to the effect, I'd much rather have a physical ailment than a mental one. And having been down that road of the mental ailment, I can appreciate that, but I think each of us have our own set of challenges that we need to help us become like our Master Jesus Christ, to help us emulate Him. And for him, his blindness has helped open the door for him to emulate the Master and in sharing his talents to the world. For me, I had to go through the mental invalids section. I arrested 4 times and court ordered to the hospital and medicated, and I was nutso, and I completely out of it, and didn't realize where I was for so long, for upwards of 2 weeks on the first incident. So I feel for this, and because of modern medicine and because of all things working together for our good, I was able to overcome that, and with the help of God too. So now I've learned how to master my body and getting in better shape than I've ever been. And it's all because of a loving God who wants us to be the masters of our ships. So here's today's quote, men are not made unhappy by poverty, but by their thirst for riches. Interesting. Where there is a cause, its effects will appear, and where affluence, the cause of immorality, and poverty, the cause of degradation, then every rich man would become immoral, and every poor man would come to degradation. So where there is a cause, its effects will appear. So because you have affluence, because you have wealth, for instance, that doesn't mean that you are wicked. It doesn't mean that you're immoral. And likewise, if you're poor, it doesn't mean like I like what I was saying here. It doesn't mean, oh, you're less than the dust of the earth. That means you have to be degraded. No, it's not at all. An evil, Alan continues, an evil doer will commit evil under any circumstances, whether be he whether he be rich or poor, or midway between the two conditions. A right doer will do right howsoever he be placed. Extreme circumstances may help to bring out the evil which is already there, awaiting its opportunity, but they cannot cause the evil, cannot create it. Extreme circumstances can help bring out, but they can't cause it. Love it. Poverty is more often in the mind than in the purse. So long as a man thirsts for more money, he will regard himself as poor. And in that sense, he is poor. For covetousness is poverty of mind. A miser may be a millionaire, but he is as poor as when he was penniless. Wow. Love James Allen, folks. I love him. Let's turn that screen share off and dive into this. So essentially, the whole point, I've rebranded. Again, I went back to one of my original brands of Emulate Christ. And the whole point, like I had B1, Emulate Christ, and Prosper. And prior to that was Emulate Christ and Prosper. And prior to that was Emulate Christ. The whole heart of the matter is essentially that we're here to emulate Christ. And I love how he teaches that and summarizes his gospel in 3rd Nephi chapter 27, where he says that the gospel is to do the will of the Father. And verse 13, he says that. And then verse 27, he says, what manner of man ought you to be, even as I am. So our whole point and our whole purpose as emulating Christ is to know the will of God and to live it. And to live it with our own personality, our own talents, and our own gifts. We're not called to go and complete an atonement like Christ did, but we are called to come to know him through Christ and to be mentored by God so that he can direct you individually. And as Martin Luther King Jr. says, if you haven't found something that's worth dying for, then you're not fit to live. So when you find your purpose, you're willing to put everything on the line for it. You're willing to not only be willing to die for it, but you're willing to live for it. And emulating Christ is something that we can all do. It's essentially living his teachings. And when you live them, then you come to the knowledge of those teachings because you receive the fruits of them. And when you have received those fruits, you have actual knowledge. Kind of like a child, when they first plant a seed, that seed, the first plant they ever, say like a bean seed, the first time they ever plant it, they don't know what it looks like when it sprouts. They've never seen something sprout before. But then they plant that seed and they water it, just like the teacher said, and then it sprouts. And they go, whoa, they go gangbusters. They're like, wow, this is amazing. And then watching it grow, it just blows their mind. And they wake up the next morning and like, wow, it grew so many inches. And, that recently happened with some of my children. So likewise, when you live the teachings of Jesus Christ and you begin to watch them sprout and bring forth good things, you come to a knowledge that those teachings are true. So I invite you to consider your ways, to consider what the character, which is the total sum of your thoughts, what your character looks like, what Christ's characters look like, what his thoughts were and his ways, and what are some perfections, what are some things that you've done well at, that you've perfected, and continue to perfect more. And the more that you become perfected in one thing, you'll be given another thing that you need to work on. For example, I was told I need to work on my body, and then I was told to work on my business. Like, you can be perfected in certain things. You can live the word of wisdom perfectly. You can live the law of tithing perfectly. And as you continue to grow in perfection upon perfection, you develop more and you're taught more weakness, which is the natural man that needs to be purged from the inside out. And you're taught that line upon line until as you continue to develop the attributes of Christ. So, thank you for joining me today. Another live come and gone, and y'all have a beautiful day. Thanks.